New visa rules by the Trump administration are causing concern among immigrant communities, and the coronavirus outbreak continues to spread across the globe. Joining me now to discuss this and much more, former Virginia Attorney General and current acting Deputy Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security, Ken Cuccinelli. Ken, thank you for being here. Great to see you. Now, to date, 2,126 people have died from this coronavirus. Right. All but 11 have been in China. But there are over 75,000 cases reported around the world. Reported. Right. And we're going to get to that in a moment.
Yes.
2 passengers on that Diamond Princess cruise in Japan have died. The others remain quarantined. What is the update from Homeland Security vis-a-vis the Diamond Princess cruise liner? And how does this relate to the 14 who tested positive for the virus?
So we ran 2 repatriation flights of American citizens who were on that Diamond Princess cruise ship. Now, not every American chose to come back. Some of them wanted to stay in place. There are advantages to staying in place. There are advantages to coming home. One of the advantages of coming home is you end up in the country with the best health care in the world.
Right.
And particularly for emergencies like this. And that's a challenging logistical undertaking.
Sure.
And as you noted, a significant number of them have tested positive for the virus. And they are quarantined now.
Where are they?
Well, some are at the University of Nebraska, where they have a very high-end facility to address patients like this, and then some of them are at one of our Air Force bases as well.
Wow.
So,
and they're there for 2 weeks, right? It's
at least
2 week
2 weeks.
quarantine
2
period.
weeks clean, yes.
Oh, 2 weeks clean.
This is post any sign of virus, yes.
Wow. Now, is that the standard for anyone traveling
That's what we've been using since we started imposing restrictions on travel. 2 weeks of quarantine, for instance, for any of the Americans who came from Hubei province, which is the epicenter of this disease right now. They had to be quarantined for 2 weeks. For others who have just traveled in China but not in Hubei, they had to self-quarantine in their home for 2 weeks for their benefit and the benefit of the community.
And what about people traveling from China? Is there? Can you travel?
If they're not American, they're blocked from coming into the country.
Can't come into the United States.
Cannot come into the
What
United
about
States.
via Canada or Europe or Mexico?
So that's called broken travel.
Okay.
We are tracking broken travel, and so you can't come indirectly either. Is it possible for us to miss a person or two? It's possible, but the Customs Border Protection folks, Transportation Security Administration, they're really good. So we have not had significant problems in that front. But it's important for people to realize, look, you don't just keep a virus like this completely out. You don't seal yourself off. There is serious math at play here. And what we're trying to do is slow down the opportunity for the virus to come to the United States. And we have succeeded at that so far. And President Trump's been very clear with those of us on his task force to err on the side of safety of the American public.
Right.
And we've done that so far.
And the longer you can keep it from the shores, the better.
Well, that's right. And you need to use that time to prepare for the eventuality that it may
could reach
break
the
out
shores.
here.
How close are we to understanding the origins of this and what it is? Do you trust the Chinese are sharing information with us?
So, first of all, the Chinese are doing better than they did, say, in the SARS epidemic in terms of sharing information. They put the genetic strand up on the internet quickly so our scientists could go to work even before we had samples. Nonetheless, it's China. And, we're not convinced they're sharing everything, to say the least. They also have a healthcare system that effectively only has hospitals. So only the most serious cases are showing up in their case count, because if you're not hospital worthy, you don't go see a doctor in China. And so your case doesn't get counted. They've also run out of tests. We've struggled with the tests as well, but our CDC has done a really good job. They're the best in the world at attacking a problem like this. In fact, the Chinese have copied our CDC.
Oh, really?
And their scientists have been talking to ours for 6, 7, 8 weeks now. But it's amazing to keep in mind, this little bug literally hasn't existed on Earth in human beings for 3 months. So we're learning an enormous amount all the time.
What do you make of the
it.
stories that perhaps it was hatched in a lab? We just don't know. We don't have enough information.
We don't know. Previous coronaviruses went from a bat to another animal to humans, and so the SARS went to a civet's cat,
right?
Which I believe was eaten in China.
Yes.
And then MERS, which is the second corona type virus, went to a camel in the Middle East. That's Middle East respiratory syndrome. And this one, there's suspicion that it went through an animal called a pangolin, where there's, I have read in some literature, there's well over a 95% genetic match with what we're seeing showing up now. But to your point, we haven't really traced it all the way back. There is a World Health Organization team over there now on the ground. It's smaller than we would have liked. It does have American representation, again, less than we would have liked. But if they're given full access, and that's really the outstanding question right now, we'll be able to trace it back to the origins.
I guess one of the good things of dealing with individuals who are infected is our doctors can get a look at this thing and figure out.
Well, that's right. We're learning from every single case in the United States, and we've been learning from the cases in the United States since we spotted the first one in Washington, in the state of Washington. And
I read
we've only had 2, though, that started here. They were spouses of cases who traveled back from China.
I read a report today that they're on the cusp, 3 weeks from verifying any vaccine or coming up with any vaccine.
Verifying simply means knowing there's a path to run to it. We're a year plus out from a vaccine,
really,
on a best case scenario. So there are, in between nothing and vaccines, there are what are called therapeutics that ameliorate the effects. And there are experiments going on, double-blind experiments, the right way to do it in China, because they have so many cases, with people right now. So some of our scientists are communicating with them on that and helping them with that. We are helping China. We are helping that whole part of the world as a nation in both money and expertise to try to ameliorate this, to ameliorate the suffering in their countries, and keep our own safe.
You are spending every day, I know, focused on this problem and warding it off and trying to keep it at bay.
I'm spending a lot more time with viruses than I thought I would.
I'll bet. Now you're a virus expert.
Yes.
Lucky you. Given your expertise and those of your colleagues, might this have been a tool of warfare, a way to penetrate our homeland security or in other countries?
I don't think it would have intentionally been considered so. It may have been studied in a lab. We study coronaviruses as well to be prepared in case someone makes the sort of attempt you're describing. But we certainly don't think that was going on here. But you know, I've read the same stories you have about the prospects that it may have come from a lab in Wuhan. They do have a class 4, biological weapons lab there. But what we do with ours is study these things so we're prepared. So it isn't just a factory for making offensive weapons. It's also a study point. And in theory, it's possible something may have escaped there. If you're China and you'd had SARS and you started the SARS epidemic before, this was a logical thing to be studying.
Before we leave this topic, do we know, or do you have any more clarity on how this is communicated at this point?
Honestly, this is Ken, the engineer, who's been learning from the world's best virologists for a month plus. It looks like both the way a cold would spread and the flu are both at play. So a lot of the advice, yes, the aerosol would be flu, and you think of coughing, but really breathing alone will do it. You don't have to just cough. And then that's flu-like, and then cold-like is touch. You touch your face, we shake hands, and so forth. And so all of this same guidance you get, very basic stuff, no rocket science. Wash your hands a lot. Don't touch your face. Cover, cough into your sleeve, because the droplets do, carry. And we're also seeing close contact that we aren't necessarily sure how it's playing a role in transmissibility. So lot still to learn here.
I'll bet.
A lot still to learn. And until we learn more and are more certain, we have to be more cautious, more careful. That's exactly what President Trump has told us. Err on the side of caution for the American people.
I need to hit two big other issues. The Department of Homeland Security announced last week that it's changing the enrollment policy for its trusted traveler programs in New York in response to New York's green light law. Now, this law allows undocumented individuals to apply for driver's license, but prohibits the DMV from sharing information with the Department of Homeland Security. How important is this sharing of information?
Utterly critical. Look,
Why?
I was a state legislator in one of the 3 states hit by 9/11. Of course, New York was another one. It was the big one. We have the Pentagon in Virginia. And we were embarrassed in Virginia that the majority of those hijackers used Virginia driver's licenses to board those planes.
Wow.
And so we did something about it. We improved our information sharing. We improved the security of our licenses. And here we watch New York walk back the other way. Now, yes, they're giving driver's licenses to illegal aliens, but I want people to understand that isn't the issue for the Department of Homeland Security. We wish they wouldn't. Because it's an incentive to come here legally. But the security issue, national security and public safety, is they're blocking the Department of Homeland Security from access to their DMV database because we can't confirm the person showing me this license is who they say they are. We don't know who owns this car that shows up in an investigation, and we don't get the most up-to-date criminal information, which is critical for the safety of our officers and the communities they're trying to protect.
And the safety of the people. Now, this administration has been warning these cities with sanctuary city policies that there could be consequences. Attorney General William Barr has filed lawsuits against New Jersey, California,
King County, Washington.
And they're pushing back. They're pushing back.
Yes.
I want to read it for you. This is California Congressman Adam Schiff. He's called these attacks on sanctuary city policies retribution by the Trump administration. He says, we're not going to give into this kind of threat or intimidation. California doesn't share his form of xenophobia. Your response?
You know, who's we, Congressman? We're enforcing the laws that your body passed. So, you know, that's what's at stake here. These are not just whimsical policies being enforced. These are laws on the books, and we're doing it the way Congress told us to do it. And law enforcement throughout the history of this country, with a number of exceptions I can count on one hand, have cooperated across local, state, and federal levels to keep each other safe and to help enforce the laws that each of them were responsible for. And here we have states like New York that are stepping in the way of law enforcement officials, whether they be at ICE or Customs Border Protection, from doing the job Congress has charged them with doing. And you just read a quote from a congressman who, if he doesn't like these laws, he's in the body to try to change them. But the president has said, while they're on the books, we will enforce them.
Yeah.
Yes.
I've got to move on before we run out of time. I know you're pressed. This Asylum cooperative program that the Trump administration has initiated, so far only Guatemala has signed on to it. But I know you're reaching out to Honduras and El Salvador. 300 asylum seekers from Honduras and El Salvador are now going to Guatemala. Why isn't the U.S. allowing these people in? And some are saying this is incentivizing people to stay home, to not seek asylum.
Yeah.
Because these places are more dangerous than the United States or where they're coming from.
It certainly incentivizes them to not seek asylum as a fraudulent measure. Asylum is about safety, not convenience or even opportunity. Our legal immigration system is for opportunity. Asylum is for safety. And one of the consensuses around the world is that refugee, asylum, migration issues are best handled close to home for whoever the migrant is. We see this with respect to Syria, Venezuela, we can go around the world and talk about that policy being applied across national boundaries. All 3 countries, Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador, have in fact signed both security and asylum agreements with the United States. They're different for each country. What we're in the process of doing with Honduras is implementing it the Asylum cooperative agreement. It's been in the works since last summer. We signed agreements last summer. And look, our partnerships with these countries are better than they've ever been. You've seen some attempts at illegal caravans coming up, and these countries, protecting their own sovereignty, have interdicted those caravans in ways they weren't capable of doing, because we helped train their folks, and we haven't just demanded things, we've helped them learn and get there so that they have more of the elements of a more sophisticated security system that they govern. They make these choices. They are sovereign countries with their own self-respect. You've heard President Bukele in El Salvador talk about not wanting to lose his youth. You also see President Bukele arresting more MS-13 members. And in fact, the first caravan that attempted to form this year in El Salvador, they went immediately in and arrested the formative member whose brother is an MS-13, real upstanding citizen. And it broke up that caravan. They want to keep their youth. And we want to help them build opportunities in their own countries.
So their own country can thrive.
That's exactly right. I mean, we're not leaving them behind. We're friends and partners and allies. We need them to be as well. And this year and the last year, those relationships have really improved.
Mr. Deputy Secretary, thank you as always. Great to see you. Thank you.
My pleasure.